Gwen, you want to take the sign down?
They used to be very competitive. I don't know what's happened lately. They're just about the highest around.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
President Gardner,
Here.
Vice President Dover,
Present.
Mr. Scholar, Mr. Jones,
Present.
Mr. Seifert,
Present.
Manager Patterson. Here. Solicitor Stone.
Here.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the workshop meeting of July 14th.
Second.
George. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. We need a motion to award a paving bid to Randy Paving in the amount which we'll discuss for the paving of certain roads. Gwen, can you give us a background on this?
Yeah, we talked about it last week, and we wanted to continue the discussion today to make sure that everyone agreed about what should be paved. I spoke to my contact person for the industrial park, and they said that they it's basically a formality that they need to approve it, but that they haven't officially approved their water repair work yet, but that he expects to have that paperwork within 3 days. So he said he'll get it to me as soon as he has it, but it's up to the board if they want to go ahead and award the paving for Overlook, and Harlan and I talked about that today. He can talk about the contract timing issues. And then we have that conversation, and then you can decide which other roads you want to pave.
Well, let's start that with that one. And I presume that we can award the contract, but of course hold off until they're...
Just with the contingency that they complete their work.
Well, the suggestion was made that we could contractually extend the period for commencing and completing the contract. And I think that's correct. I think if the contractor is prepared to waive those requirements or extend the timing, you can always do that by contract. The question is, when I've seen that done in the past, typically there's a extension of so many days. In this case, the engineer is suggesting, since we don't really know when or if that work is going to be completed prior to our awarding the contract, that we might be able to negotiate an indefinite extension with the contractor. But as I said, I'm not used to seeing that type of an open-ended commitment by the contractor. But again, I guess in theory it's possible.
We can't just approve it with the contingency that the other work is completed?
No, because under the terms of your bid and your contract that you would award to this contract, to El Grande, it says that the notice to proceed is effective on the date that the contract is accepted. So unless you change that, the notice to proceed date, that has to be done, it has to be negotiated, it has to be agreed to. Now, our engineer says that he's already talked to El Grande, and El Grande is prepared to enter into a side agreement that would change or would extend that notice to proceed date. But again, nothing on the other end.
So if the industrial park didn't complete their job and we had contracted, we could potentially be liable?
You could potentially, unless you agree with the contractor otherwise. Now again, I go back to this, it's not that unusual to enter into that kind of a contract extension with the contractor. The benefit to you is it secures or it guarantees the price. But I'd be reluctant to extend that indefinitely, because a year from now, which is probably once you get past October where you're going to be looking at it, a year from now those prices could be higher. Those prices, you might want to rebid it. You might get a better price in April or May of next year. But it doesn't sound to me like the industrial park or who's the management company there?
Oxford.
Oxford. It doesn't sound to me like Oxford is in any position to give you any type of a framework for when their work might be started.
Well, they did say if all goes as they hope / expect, they said, I asked a lot of questions when I talked to him, and I said, what's the time frame for the project if you get it approved this week? He said 4 weeks and their contractor's ready to go. So he expects that their work should be done at the end of August. So we will have time to pave during this paving season if that all goes according to plan. And even if, say, that they have to double their estimate, that only takes us to the end of September. So we would still have time in the paving season to get our work done. He sounded confident that it would happen, but he understands that it hasn't been signed on his end for his work. So there was a question, and there's another one for Harlan. Can we award certain roads this evening and hold off and award Overlook at the next workshop meeting, because that, hopefully by then, we will know that they are working on it.
Well, I think the way it was bid, you can.
How long is the bid good for?
George, from Michael said that there was not an end date that the bid could stay open.
Really?
That's unusual
That's
too.
unusual, that's for sure.
I mean, my inclination on the one hand would be to extend it only as far as the bid is good for. In other words, if Meidel's bid or El Grande's bid is 30 days, then what's the point in extending it beyond 30 days? But I still don't understand why we can't just say the timing of our contract with El Grande is contingent upon the completion of the other work. Just eliminate any other statement in the contract.
Honestly, I don't think you bid it that way. I don't think you bid it with a contingency.
He didn't bid it that way.
So if you didn't bid it with a contingency in the specs, I don't know how you can change that unless the contractor agrees to change.
How about reaching an agreement to extend it to a set time like August, August 31st or something? And if they're not ready at that point, then we could consider another extension.
Well, I think you can do that. I think you can give a 30 or a 60-day extension. Again, all assuming he's willing to agree to that. I think that can be done. Then you hold the price, and he holds his price for 60 days. 60 days, 90 days. But I think there should be an end date. Yeah, it should expire at some point. And the engineer seems to think that it should just be an open-ended commitment, and that makes me a little nervous because I don't want to see you committed beyond a certain point.
Well, can you give us some wording?
Any of the road engineers have any experience with this?
George, normally a contract is awarded, the begin date is when the contract is awarded. You don't preset a time to start the contract. And then he's given 30, 60, 90, whatever days is necessary. But the start time begins when the contract is awarded. Now, a lot of times the winning contractor can't start right away. He's got to wait for maybe a month. So you can usually come up with some sort of an agreed date on it. So if you could do that with him and just allow him, I don't know how many days is in the contract, but 30, 60, 90, 120 days or whatever. That way it works to everybody's benefit.
If they don't do our work, Tom, and we do our work, what happens?
So we're just gonna have to, cut out this patch for those, but Overlook is a total, there's nothing we can do.
Nothing we can do on Overlook.
Overlook, we can't do.
Until this work is done.
Well, even if it came to the point we weren't gonna pave it this year, it's beyond even putting cold patch at the very end of it. There's nothing left at dirt.
Probably if you could negotiate with the contractor, even though it may not be the terms of the contract.
Yeah.
I think the way I understood it, the contractor would be understood that this is for the paving season. However, I believe the contract was written saying all work would be completed by August 29th.
See, that's a mistake right there.
Yes, I thought so too, because I had recommended that when that draft came out, I said, no, how about let's push it at least till the end of October, because I knew that the Overlook work wasn't going to get done by August 29th, certainly not in time for them to complete their work and then us to come in and pay.
Do we have 3 weeks?
To wait to award everything?
No. Award everything where we're in control.
And then,
I'm just concerned, we're not we have no control over the completion of their work, but we'll be liable for the contract. That doesn't sit well.
Right, that's what makes,
You can always add time to the end of the contract if you have a start date and want to use that. If he can't really start at that time, well, we can't. Then you can add a week or 10 days, 20 days, whatever.
Well, the way this was worded, the contractor is given notice to proceed when he accepts the contract. That's the way this is worded.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what will happen is, as soon as you award it tonight, he accepts it tomorrow or the next day. He's immediately authorized you've immediately authorized him to proceed in the next couple of days.
And if he's
So,
ready to go,
If
he
he's
can
ready to
start.
go, or if he goes out and starts ordering supplies and starts buying inventory and he starts staging for that job and you're not ready to have him go, I think that's a really
No.
risky proposition.
No,
So
can't do that.
can we award a certain list of roads and then just wait and say, you know, we want to table awarding the overlook one, so he can get going and started on some of it?
I would think so.
Other roads.
The way it was bid, it looks to me like you can award some of it, but
Yeah.
not all
Yes,
of it.
definitely.
But I don't, but
I don't know if it, but if we only
But you
award
might have
some,
to
is that
re-
closing
might have to
the
re-
you might,
door?
I think you would probably need to rebid if you're only awarding some and you're not awarding the others. Because somebody might be able to come in with a lower bid on just one road. Well, it was on a unit basis though,
It
right?
was.
That's possible. If it was bid on a unit basis, you could separate it out.
If you think Oxford will reply within the week,
I do.
then my inclination would be to approve all but Overlook.
But Harlan might have to rebid.
You might have to re-advertise.
Chase, it's not just, I mean, that's a couple months process. It's not just like run it in the Herald. We would be into awarding at this date in September.
Well, without reviewing the bid documents more than I already have today, because this is the first I had an opportunity to see them, I'd be reluctant to say whether you can separate one road and then hold it and table the one without re-advertising. But I can certainly look at it and get and have an answer for you tomorrow.
Okay, well, here's the thought, can we have a special meeting next week? I know that's annoying and costs, there's advertising involved, but is that safer than just call a meeting to award once we have everything as lined up as we can ask the engineer to come in and answer anything that we are tossing around?
And Oxford may have solidified,
They
and
may
you can
have.
talk to Midle and see what they're willing to live with. Or El Grande.
If, I would hate to have to bid, to award 3 roads now and then have to have that close the door on Overlook, because that's our biggest problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I would hate to delay that so that it would just, by timing and factories, have it end up being in the spring, because it won't make it through the winter. I have to go put plywood down on it or something.
We're all aware that we expedited.
I'm sorry?
We're all aware that expedited buying the materials. road.
So,
Well, I hate to say it, but I think what our solicitor is telling us and what my gut tells me is we should delay it.
Yep. I agree.
I'm available for a special meeting. I mean, we would only need 3 votes and
I mean, you already know who, like you said, you know who the low bidder is. You know that the low bidder is responsible. So all you got to figure out is whether you can award Overlook, knowing that your work can't start until their work, meaning Oxford's work, is complete.
How long do you think that'll take?
4 weeks from when they start, is what they said. It would take 4 weeks and when they start.
Well, then we really wouldn't want to award it till for 4 weeks.
September.
Well, we could award it and they could start on our other roads first. And then they could get to Overlook when it's ready. They can start paving the other roads that we were planning to.
Can we control it?
Of course,
that
we
way?
have South McCoy that's on a little bit of a schedule too, and Ingleside. So we have, all of the roads are kind of waiting for stuff to be done on them.
I would say do the best we can to firm things up in a week and have a special meeting. Harlan will get a chance to look at the contract. You can talk to,
I will have, I'm
Michael
gonna ask
and
George Anderson to come in for that special meeting, the engineer from Mitel, just so he can answer with his experience.
that's what I would do.
I still think we should discuss the other roads, though.
Okay.
You proceed sort of, even if we're not proceeding with a contingency formally, let's discuss it now.
Okay. You want to start?
Well, I have emails to read to the board. Can I read those? Sure. Okay. And I'll start with one that's relatively unrelated, but it's paving nonetheless. This is from Ruth Dara. She says, Matt, thanks to the public service guys who repaired the grassy areas that were damaged by the plows. Ruth Dara. Okay, next one is from Marnie Haynes. We want to go on record that at some point Sewickley Ridge Drive will need some work. There are a series of cracks running across the road that are gradually worsening each year. We think some of it may have been caused by the FiOS project. Sewickley Ridge Drive does need mending in the not-so-distant future. Next is an email from Eric Gross of Masonic Village. The road I am most concerned about, I believe, is not Aleppo's responsibility, and that is where Merriman turns into School Street. Not sure what negotiations went into getting it repaired a couple years ago, but it was much appreciated. It is still fairly rough. Our issue is that some GPS systems send people onto School Street when coming to Masonic Village. Thank you for your consideration of this road. The last one is from Helen Batchelor, also of Sewickley Heights Manor. She says the only thought is that when they change the entryway into our complex, the right turn coming up Glen Mitchell is now a bit of a problem as cars seem to make the turn almost going into cars coming out of the complex. Don't know if this can be addressed or if it's too late. Seems like it's too narrow now. So those are the emails I wanted to share.
I think to review what we did in the workshop meeting, we have $550,000, give or take, set aside for roads. We're spending $450,000. When?
Right.
To award, if we chose to award,
Yeah.
450.
So, very good that we're finally doing some roads, but the conversation went to where can we find the money to replenish that fund after we're down to 450? And I felt reasonably comfortable that we could replenish the fund from the general fund over a period of 5 years or whatever. But my question to Tom and to Gwen is, because I don't have the study in front of me, next year's priorities would be?
All the Sewickley Ridge Drive.
Right. Which I think talks to Ruth Dara's. And the way I read...
No, that was Marnie, but okay, whatever, right.
Okay, the way I remember the report is that Sewickley Ridge Drive is then high on the list from the tennis courts to the cul-de-sac. So if we're comfortable with that, then I'm comfortable with following the priorities that we bid this year.
The road report puts Sewickley Ridge Drive as priority number 3.
Yeah.
Behind only Overlook and Sewickley Heights Drive, which is already done.
Yeah. I'm comfortable doing it next year just because of the burden that Overlook's putting on us. And we got to get that done. The others are not minor, but relatively minor. But Tom, you said you were going to do a little work on Sewickley Ridge Drive when you start patching
Yeah, plus Rockledge, we have to,
this year.
yeah, we have to.
You're going to do work on Sewickley Ridge and Rockledge?
The curves, Rockledge, we have no choice to, when the township took that road over, the manhole that's right up near the top, right in the center of the road, we had to cut it out last winter because the plows were hitting the manhole, the asphalt wasn't coming out. So now we gotta go in, cut everything out around that manhole and redo it. Because how the road passed, I don't know, because the plows hit the manhole.
But you do have Sewickley Ridge Drive, and tell Matt exactly what you intend to do on
We're just
Sewickley.
repairing places on Sewickley Ridge as you're going up. The curb on the right has been broke out. There's a few other places going up on the right-hand side that we're gonna take care of this year. That's the only areas that are broke out. As far as cracks, we're gonna crack seal this fall. And that's our plan.
So that does address Marnie's.
And School Street, we're not gonna do it.
We're just gonna do some patching on it. We have to, where it lifted last winter, we have to cut a section out down near the bottom, because the road lifted like that much, and never went back down.
It's a big pothole right there.
Well, I know there's a pothole there too.
And I hit it every time.
Go around
Okay, where are we?
Well, I would move to defer, or whatever you say, the decision on the roads for
Till the special meeting.
till the special meeting.
No, I don't think there's, if what Michael was saying is correct, then the bids don't expire. You don't have to award them tonight. You can award them in a special meeting next week.
That's what I think, George is.
Yeah, I think you can explain that to them.
I think that's fine. I
And in the
mean,
meantime, you come to an agreement with the contractor, is that?
Well,
What
no,
you're-
in the meantime, I think Gwen's gonna check out and see how realistic whatever timeframe that Oxford comes up with, if anything. I mean, there is a risk, there is a possibility that Oxford says, it's not in our budget anymore.
Mhm.
And then it's not a matter of extending it 3069, now it's a matter of, you can't do it.
It's a $200,000 event.
So, I mean, those are my concerns.
That's what you're saying. So my motion, Martha, however you want to phrase it. Tom, are you comfortable with deferring for a week,
Yeah,
roughly?
Yeah, the only question I have is the project on South McCoy. Can we still let the authority get started on that as soon as their material comes on in?
That I see very little risk to, and so I would say yes.
Install the line on the edge of the road, it's not in the road.
I mean,
So it should be.
Because we're not going to throw out,
That
there's
should
only,
be
there's only a
doable.
crossing, I think, in the
One
paving.
crossing.
Yeah, you're right.
okay.
I mean, I just look at a timing point on there.
Good.
So they're not rushed.
Just so I understand the problem exactly, can somebody tell me in 3 sentences or fewer exactly why we have to defer tonight?
In my opinion, it's because we don't control the completion of the work by Oxford, which allows us to do our work. If they don't do their work, we could be liable for the contracted work on Overlook, but we can't do it.
And what do they need to do? They need to do basins and whatnot, catch basins?
They have a big water problem and they have to, yes.
Okay.
Stormwater remediation.
On their property. Next
It
week.
exposes us to a liability where we don't control the variables. We're reliant upon somebody else that we have no recourse to
No, I
do
think-
something.
I think to avoid that in the future from that happening, there are other ways to bid the contract.
Okay.
But the way this contract in particular was bid, I think you have a risk.
But you're not 100% sure of that. You may be more sure of that tomorrow.
After I review the bid documents, yes.
I mean, I don't see anything in these specs, unless there's general conditions that we don't have, about how long the bid's good for, when, how much time they have to complete the work. None of that is in here that I can see. All they have is the completion date of all the contracts.
And I only, like I said, I got this late this afternoon. I looked at it very quickly for purposes of tonight's meeting. I was able to identify that the notice to proceed becomes effective on the date of acceptance. That concerns me. And that makes it, again, even, and I agree with John, I did not see any other deadlines or scheduling dates in the contract document. So it looked to me like it was a pretty wide open bid. And, again, I think if it had been bid differently, you might have more flexibility. But from what I've seen, I don't think you have that.
Okay, let's have your motion.
I move to defer the approval of the road construction bids until the next special meeting.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
All in favor, any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
The advertising for that will, most likely for the special meeting, I'll talk to everyone about your schedule and I'll schedule it. Advertising may not appear in the Herald, it may be in either the Allegheny Times or the Tribune Review. We'll also post the building and I'll put it on the website.
Do you have a completion date in the contract? I think there is. If you delay it pretty long, it's going to be to the point where the contractor won't be able to finish it by that.
1 week.
We just have to put an addendum out and change it.
We're hoping to get an answer from Oxford in 3 days.
I would suggest, for what it's worth, that any special meeting you have, you might sit down with the contractor and find out what his schedule might be, and then you can come up with some dates and times, and as long as it's legal to do that, that's the best way to go.
Good idea.
Communications.
It's a good idea.
Okay. Keep busy. Next, item 6. We need a motion to purchase 24 months of professional liability insurance tail coverage from National Casualty for $3,600.
So I, Mr. President, have a motion that we purchase 24 months of professional liability insurance tail coverage from National Casualty for $3,600.
I second.
Any further discussion?
I would just like to, I mean, at the risk of dragging things out, I just want to re-explain what we discussed at the workshop meeting last week, which is that the reason that I'm making this motion is that I'm concerned that without buying tail insurance coverage, we're exposing ourselves to liability for potential lawsuits that could be out there arising out of not just the sewer project, but other liabilities. We've purportedly put our insurance carrier on notice that there are other, I mean, something absurdly broad, like there are other people who are upset about the sewer project, but that doesn't even if that is effective, which I don't think it is, that doesn't begin to cover us with respect to any other liabilities that are out there. So I think that for $3,600, while it's an increase in our budget, it's a modest amount that will protect us from exposure.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I should ask Harlan. I mean, I understood that from Chris that you basically agreed with that. You agree with that? Do I understand it correctly?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that was part of our analysis, was to determine what the function or what the purpose of tail coverage is. I think Chris explained that at the workshop.
Yeah.
And as far as the cost goes, again, knowing what I know, I agree with you. The $3,600 seems modest by way of cost for that. Now, it's also for a limited number of years, right?
Well, that was going to be my next question to you. Is do you think that 24 months is sufficient?
I would think so, because I would think also, if you consider what the statute of limitations would be on claims that might be laying out there related to the project, most of those would have expired by then.
Okay.
We ready to vote? Roll call, please.
President Gardner,
Yes.
Vice President Dobler,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes?
Mr. Seifer.
Yes.
Motion carries. Reports. Public safety. Do I get on camera?
We gotta say anything with that?
Just come up and stand at the corner of the table for us, Chief.
Right here?
Perfect.
There we go. Following the common police activity in Little Township for the month of June 2014. Alarms residence 2, alarms business 2. 1 DUI, 1 harassment by communication call, 1 trespassing call, lost and missing persons. I don't know if Gwen made you aware of that incident. Did everybody know about that, Gwen?
No.
No, I
Which
didn't.
one is it?
An elderly lady that had some I don't know what amount of dementia, red gate, and then it goes way down into the woods. I didn't even realize this. There's a couple of houses down there. Unbelievable. If you went down in there, you'd just shake your head, especially come wintertime. There's gotta be times when these people cannot get out of there. But the road actually ends up winding down, comes out down there by the old County Communications down in Woolworth. These people that own the residence down there, go to New Mexico for most of the year, and then they come back in the summertime. He came home, and she got out of the car, and she was confused about where she was living. She didn't believe this was her house. And she he went downstairs to flip on all the water pumps and everything, and she kind of wandered through the yard. We had the entire fire department, 8 of my officers, we even had state police helicopters in the area. What they told us was that she didn't have the ability to walk too far, so we concentrated mostly around the house in the valley, and it's a heavily wooded, deep ravine. She wandered all the way down that road and ended up on the boulevard and was heading up the boulevard. Passerby noticed her and called in, so it was a happy ending, but it was it's amazing the amount of people that muster up for something like that. These guys, the volunteer guys, are unbelievable. The equipment, everything that they had that they could possibly bring in was brought in. It was interesting. One mental health case. This is just an elderly person. Suspicious circumstances. Going to read 2. One was someone thought they heard a gunshot in the woods. Checked it out. Didn't see anything. Didn't find anything. The other was individual had kids were playing a prank on someone that's a former school teacher. She recognized the kids and told them, she just wanted a report made, but she didn't want to. She told the kids, if it happens again, then I'm going to tell the police who you are. One domestic, ambulance assist 9, traffic offenses 1, trees down 1, lost and found animal 1, off-road vehicle call 1, 911 hang-up calls 1, and 17 citations. That's my report. Anybody have any questions?
Where was the DUI?
Duff Road near Hill Road. That's over.
The other side.
That's over the lower 40. Any other questions?
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you. Report is accepted. Fire department, no report. Emergency management.
I just got an email from Judy right before the meeting saying that she was traveling and she would have to miss tonight.
Okay.
Gwen, could you describe a little bit about yours and my meeting the other day?
Sure. George, Judy, and I met and went over the emergency operations plan, which is different than the emergency management plan. This is the plan that we will have that details what everyone's role in the township is in an emergency and sets this place as the first command center, George as the commissioner in charge of certain kinds of activities. And we went through the whole thing and had to assign people to different tasks and have different specific tasks laid out and how we're going to handle different crises. So we're working on that.
And Matt was named head of communications during an emergency.
Yes.
And I just want to say that Judy has done a tremendous job. I went home and told my wife if I had to do that by myself, it would have taken 2 years of study. She is right on top of these things.
Okay, is that it? Accept that report. Communications.
Well, I'm pleased to announce that for the first time tonight, we are live streaming our meetings. So rather than just recording them online, they're being streamed. And I saw we have 0 viewers right now, but about 20 minutes ago we had 1. So somebody's watching it. I don't think it's her.
Did that person get bored?
They might have. They disconnected right at the same time that we deferred discussion of the road project. You know, the recording, though, I continue to say, I won't keep saying this every month, but the recording is very successful. Last month, we had 192 views of our meeting, which I think is just is extraordinary. That was the highest ever. I continue to be interested by what particular parts of the meeting people enjoy or seem to tune into. Last month, it was our discussion of investing the savings account money. People popped into that. The Aleppo Township Authority report was another popular spot. The Ambulance Authority report was a popular spot, which I thought was surprising. And the Public Works report was popular. In other communications news, we sent out our letter this month. I hope everybody got it, updating our efforts as commissioners in the first 6 months. And I think that I guess it's not a report, but I think that I want to say to the commissioners that I think that the time is coming when we need to make some sort of an effort to explain to residents what we found in the first 6 months, 7 months of 2014 as far as the bills go. In particular, this water and sewage bill. George, we promised people we were going to do that when we got in here. We were going to look at things, and we have looked at things. I know we've looked at things. I know we've looked at a number of options in terms of whether there will be any relief from the bills. But I think that we need to either call a separate meeting to make a presentation of what we've done and what we've come to, or make it a part of a legislative meeting, or put something online. But I do think that we need to address that.
I agree. I'm going to have certain comments later in the meeting that touches on that. Touches.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay, thank you. Except that report, I certainly heard good comments too around the village about particularly being able to zero in on one particular part of the meeting and pick up on that. They like that.
Good.
Tax collector.
Nope, you missed planning and zoning.
There was no meeting this month, so no activity, but there will be a meeting next month.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. The taxes for June, the earned income tax was $20,600. Business privilege tax, $18,778.33. Local service tax was $1,972.41. Property tax, $14,320.05. Delinquent real estate taxes, $6,517.77, and no realty transfer tax. On the back of your tax report, I have put the 2014 taxes to date, and I've also given you 2013 taxes for the full year. But you can compare the budget. One of the questions that you particularly, George, had asked for. Our budget this year, the earned income tax last year was $120,000. We actually collected $199,000 all year. So our budget for this year is $200,000. The business tax remained at $40,000. Last year we collected $34,000, and we're at $24,000 now at 6 months. The local tax was $25,000. Last year we collected $37,000, and we kept the budget figure at the $25,000. The property tax is the one that truly changed, and last year with the millage it was $542,000 budgeted. This year it's $460,000, which is a difference of $82,000 less. Last year, for whatever reason, we didn't recall or record the delinquent taxes, and we actually have a budget this year of $10,000, and to date we've already collected $9,900. And then the transfer tax, we put in it budgeted at $20,000, and unless we can sell a lot more property in the next 6 months, we're not going to come close to that. But that just gives you the corresponding figures between 13 and 14.
So the increase in the earned income tax virtually offsets the decrease in the projected property tax,
Yes.
which is quite
Plus,
nice.
plus the 10,000 that's in the budget for delinquent taxes, and I think we're gonna collect.
So a lower millage, but equal collections.
I doubt if we're gonna continue to see that increase in the earned income tax. That should level off at some,
I don't know, should it?
well, we get more people working, it will, but,
Yeah,
I think the previous increases just were due to the fact that we were collecting it and getting it,
collecting it,
you know,
because now it's being taken
With
out
help,
of
yeah.
with help.
the paychecks
Mhm.
and being submitted.
I think there's another thing that I've noticed where I live. Some of the retirees are being replaced by people still working.
Some of the retirees are still working.
And some of the retirees are still working, but I can name 4 or 5 residences out of 56 where I live, where that has occurred. And I think that's going to stabilize. In other words, I don't think it's going to decrease because those people intend to be there for 10 years.
Oh, yeah, it'll decrease, but we're not gonna see much of an increase. Okay. Any questions? Anything else?
Thanks, Charlotte.
That's accepted.
And treasures?
Treasures.
General fund of PNC has a balance of $175,003.33. The Pliget General Fund, $105,178.50. The Pliget Plus, which is the money market type, $1,028,816.92. The liquid fuels, $39,902.34. The reserve fund with Pliget, $103,394.65. Capital improvements, and this is the road fund, a lot of that, $578.09. Infrastructure with PA Invest, $115,730.92. And total monies on hand, $2,078,604.75. And less the pledged funds, the operating funds, $1,308,998.75. And the sewer bond fund is $262,401.35. Questions?
Question?
Gwen probably knows this better, perhaps you do. The sewer bond fund is adequate to make our next payment? It's on schedule?
We just received another 100,000 from them today, in checks today that are being mailed out tomorrow. So yes, we're on schedule to make today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Accept that report. Next is finance.
So I have a motion that we approve the June bill list in the amount of $127,510.99.
Need a second? I'll second it.
I have the one question, Gwen. That includes the 100,000 payment to Swickley?
It does.
So I brought this up before. Kevin Flannery offered in writing to summarize this transaction in a letter agreement. And I've asked Gwen to ask him to put it into a letter agreement. And so, for me, I would prefer that payment is contingent upon that letter agreement.
Good made.
Or do we pay it?
It's paid,
We
right?
didn't pay it yet. No, it's on the bill list, so it's not.
Oh, right, that's right.
Yeah,
Excuse
it's not paid.
I'm still just very uncomfortable with that entire transaction. I can't even find out for sure who shook hands.
Great.
So I feel more comfortable paying that large amount of money after we have some verification in writing, which Kevin has offered.
Well, do you want to amend your own motion to?
No, I made the
You
motion.
made the motion. Do you want to?
But I'll continue one further step when, at the same time, we don't want to increase any conflict or controversy. Do you think Kevin would be amenable to this?
I know he offered it, you're right, he offered in a letter that, to put it in.
So he would
the
understand that we want to pay it contingent upon that letter.
But wasn't that, didn't we, I mean, maybe my memory is failing me, but didn't we pass a motion last week to reduce that to a letter agreement?
Mhm.
We did, right?
Mhm.
So how far has that gotten in the week?
Kevin and I, he was away for a day and I was away for a day, so we played phone tag, so. We've left each other multiple messages.
He must have the letter agreement in his mind, so it should just be a matter of communicating and him writing it. And I think we could review that at the special meeting.
Sure.
Well, then why don't we approve the bills other than that? All right, so why don't we,
Well, another, you could approve it subject to receipt of an executed letter agreement and authorize Gwen to hold it until the letter agreement.
That way, if the letter agreement happens within 2 weeks, we don't have to wait a month to pay
Right.
it. We could just
Yes.
send the check when we're ready.
why don't we just not approve it contingent to anything? Let's just approve the June bill list in the amount of $27,510.99 and take up the payment to Sewickley next week.
Yeah, and then the intent would be, tell Kevin that in order to receive the check, get that letter to us in time for us to approve it next week, or whenever the special meeting is. That'll give him motivation.
I could also point out that we've overpaid Sewickley roughly close to $100,000 because of the meter problem.
We'll get into that.
We'll talk about that later, but I mean,
Okay.
they've got $100,000 of ours.
Well, but I listen, I don't.
Maybe that's immaterial.
I don't want to confuse the issue, and you know, I'm sensitive to the fact that Kevin could end up watching this, right?
That's okay.
And I agree that it's okay, but I don't want our motivation for not paying that
I understand.
to get confused. I want it
Okay.
to stay very clear that we intend to pay that. We expect to pay it.
Yes,
It's a matter of formality in terms of not paying it at this point.
I agree.
I'm just making
So with that clarification, I would amend my own motion, and I would make a new motion. I'll withdraw the original motion. I'll make a new motion to approve the June bill list in the amount of $27,510.99. And I'll make a second motion to table definitely paying $100,000 to Sewickley until our special meeting next week. So it's two motions, Mr. President.
I'll accept the amendment on the approving 27,510. And there's a separate motion now concerning the 100,000.
Which I will second.
Okay. Well, let's vote on the first motion. We'll vote on the motion to approve the 27,510.99. All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Okay, we don't need a roll call, I guess. Now, there's a second motion is to, would you restate that?
The second motion is to defer definitely a decision on paying $100,000 to Sewickley until the special meeting next week.
Okay, and that's already seconded. So all in favor of the second motion?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
All right, then I'll add another motion to ratify June prepaid bills in the amount of $16,250.94.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Mr. President, I have another motion to ratify June payroll transfers in the amount of $16,548.73.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. I didn't hear any objection. Now we need a motion to accept the 2013 audit.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion?
Brief discussion. I was very pleased at how well-written and understandable that audit was. I was equally pleased with the answers to the questions raised as we reviewed the audit.
Good.
I'd have some more discussion. In the management letter, and I know this is not related to us approving or not approving the audit, but in the management letter, there were some suggestions that we sort of touched on briefly. Do we want to do anything more formally about addressing those issues?
They're good issues. I mean, why don't you reiterate the issues
Well,
in brief?
He can do it.
Number one, he wants us to come up with policies, which I think is very important. Policies dealing, I mean, I don't think we have credit cards to be dealing with, but we do? You do.
I emailed him today just to say, thanks for the audit, we look to approve it this evening, and we'll be glad to have any of the sample financial policies that we talked about.
The auditor was going to send us boilerplates from other communities that allow that to occur, to show us what types of documents he would like to see us put in place. And he was very helpful.
Did we get any of those?
No, I reminded him today.
I see. Okay.
Okay. Nothing further required there?
No.
Okay, go on to Aleppo Township Authority.
Well, we're gonna vote on it.
We did.
We did not vote on accepting the 2013 audit.
We have a motion and a second.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Aleppo Township Authority.
All right. At the last meeting of the authority, the authority authorized hiring Houston Associates to assist the authority staff and the accounting and preparation of periodic financial reports in more detail than produced by the QuickBooks system of accounting that they are using at the present time. Several meetings with Houston Associates, members of the authority board as well as the staff to implement that. The maintenance staff received a final bid sheet on that expansion of the garage. I think I've reported on that before, but it is $107,000. And what surprised me is that bid is good indefinitely. I don't know how that can be possible, but that's what Bill Davis, thank you, tells me that that's the case.
Is there money available?
Well, that's debatable. I don't think it's readily available.
So
I don't think there's any action to be taken on that at this point.
we got a bid, so.
But we do have a bid, and we can consider it going forward. The flow meters to Swickley have been recalibrated. Very good results as as, after the recalibration became evident.
Question on that, how, when you have a flow that's intermittent like that, how can you calculate the total flow over a period of time?
Well, it accumulates the flow regardless of the rate, whether it's very uniform at a low rate, by gravity, or when the pumps are running when it's much higher.
Okay, so it gives you a calculation of the total.
It's going to measure the velocity through the pipe up to the water level that it sees. It's open channel flow, and it measures the flow very, very accurately. There is one complication, one deficiency that still has to be resolved. And in talking with Dave Coldren of KLH, they're going to take care of this. That they're going to see that the contractor, I think that is their effort. That is KLH's effort to have the I'll tell you what the problem was, to remove the existing flume that was installed there originally and is no longer needed for this project, for this application. And the flume is causing some turbulence that's creating one relatively small error, but it occurs, it is significant whenever the pumps aren't running, which is a small part of the time. I should say a large part of the time when the pumps are not running. And so we don't know that that's going to change the overall result, but right now it appears that when we were running 60 to 70,000 gallons a day at Glen Mitchell, it's down to around 25 to 30 in that range. And Red Bank was 100 to 120 in that range, and it's down in the 80 to 90,000 gallons a day range. So those are significant reductions in the total flow.
Does this mean we'll see a significant reduction in our charges?
I think so, yeah.
Now,
Yeah, me too.
John, your partner has a comment.
Well, I was going to call on him in a second here.
Okay, fine.
and just say that KLH has analyzed the numbers and prepared a letter to send to Swickley showing the effect of the corrections. And I think Tony's going to discuss that now as to how we're going to handle recovering the excess payments that we've made, which I indicated earlier, I think are probably approaching $100,000.
Can I just reiterate my understanding of where we stand before you go forward? And you tell me if I understand this correctly, because I think some of what I understand from a meeting or discussion that I had with Tony off the record. So my understanding in very basic terms is that there is a meter between Aleppo and Sewickley, 2 meters between Aleppo and Sewickley that's measuring the flow of sewage that's going to the treatment plant from Aleppo. And that we pay our rates based on what this meter says, right? And that at some point a discrepancy was discovered between the amount of water that we were purchasing from our water supplier and the amount of sewage that we were allegedly putting into the Sewickley sewage system.
That's correct.
So,
well said.
The discrepancy was between the amount we were receiving the payment for the sewage.
Okay.
The amount we billed for the sewage and the amount we paid for Sewickley.
Okay.
I can give you some figures.
I just need to understand the big pictures. So based on this discrepancy, we went in and we challenged the accuracy of the meter, and we brought in a representative from the manufacturer who looked at the meter and calibrated the meter and determined that it was not correctly calibrated.
correct.
And these numbers that you just gave us now are estimates of how inaccurately calibrated it
That's
was.
right.
Is that all about right?
Basic concept.
Okay.
Right.
So my question is, has Sewickley acknowledged that this meter was inappropriately calibrated?
I don't know that they've been notified officially.
Let me back up.
Okay.
Maybe Tony
Come up and
knows that.
speak loud so we can hear you.
We started on this problem about February. So before we got to the meter, we wanted to ensure that we didn't have major leaks and everything else in the system. So our superintendent and so forth checked out all the sewer systems to make sure that we didn't have an infill or any leaks into the system. We resolved that we did not. All right? So we were still reading in leak terms. The meters were reading 172,000 gallons a day as a sewage flow to Sewickley. However, we were only billing our clients for 107,000 gallons a day. So obviously, we were paying Sewickley more than we were collecting from our clients, so there was something grammatically wrong. And the more we got to it, a very strong feeling that it's very difficult to measure gravity flow in a sewer. It's false problems. When we asked KLH if they had a certification that those meters were installed correctly, they said that they did not. We insisted that we bring somebody in to certify that they were operating correctly. And we have a report. The authority paid the money to bring the man in, $1,500 or whatever. He was a technician, he knew his business. He spent a whole day there, and he found 5 or 6 things which were really significantly wrong with the way it was calibrated. Therefore, it could not record correctly. So it was recording significantly higher than the flows actually were. So he spent a day, and
I'm sorry to interrupt, but who calibrated it initially?
It wasn't calibrated.
I don't know who would calibrate.
That's what I understand.
Who was supposed to calibrate it initially?
KLH and
I thought that the installer of the meter would calibrate it first, then the meters were changed a month or so into it because they were the incorrect meters, so the meters were changed and calibrated once, but then there was a discussion about, they were calibrated when installed, but these kinds of meters, do I understand they need to be recalibrated periodically?
They were replaced. The original meters were replaced.
Right.
But I don't think the ones that are in now were calibrated. That's
No.
my understanding.
they were, they put it in meters, the first meters didn't work at all. They were really bad. So they came in and they replaced the meter with a new meter, which is much more sophisticated, and it has a lot of integration on it, and it can determine flows over any given period of time. However, that meter was not calibrated. As I understand it, they relied upon the installer or the manufacturer's rep to do whatever calibration, if any, which you don't, in my view, you don't get a manufacturer's rep, you get the man that made the meter, you install it and calibrate it. So we insisted that we bring in the manufacturer of the meter. And John was there, and he did a good job. He found serious things wrong with it, and he did recalibrate it as much as he could. And in recalibrating, he got it closer to what our water consumption was. He was within 8 to 10%.
Right.
But there's still some problem that the contractor left this old meter flume in pipe. And that was causing a turbulence, which was throwing the reading off a little. So he said, as far as the technician, that and gave us a certification that that meter is now calibrated correctly. It should work, provided that you get that flume out of there, so that vertex would be solved. And he felt that it would be accurate within 10%. Which amazes me. Apparently the electronics is much more better than
was back in my time. So anyway, they claim that they'll be accurate within 10%. But I still contend that that's still not accurate enough to bill against, because a water meter is accurate within 1%. So our position is we should use the water flow of our clients, our sewer clients. So we've had KLH write a letter. I've made it a little stronger. But in essence, what we're telling strictly, we're giving them the background. We're telling them that since July last year, we've been paying for sewage, which we're not just significantly more than what we use. And it amounts to, well, 38% more than the sewage, the water flow that we use. And if you total that up, it comes up to be, well, I won't get into numbers. It comes up to, we paid him $100,460 in excess of what we should.
Over what period of time?
Since July of last year. So what we're saying is, we want a credit. Most definitely want a credit. And KLH prepared nice tables here showing all that. And so we're prepared to issue this letter tomorrow, demanding a credit, recognizing that we have to take care of this turbulence problem in the other meter. Once we do that, I think we'll get fairly accurate reading. And I'm convinced this PAC meter is a very sophisticated meter, as I said. Much more sophisticated than what I saw in 2000. So it can work, but it's still going to be plus or minus 10%.
So Tony, this letter that you have that's not yet been sent is the first that Swickley is hearing about this problem?
Well, I introduced it to him verbally last time I was there.
Okay. And what about KLH? I mean, I take it from, without having read that letter, that KLH is acknowledging the problem with the meters.
Yes, that's what I want.
Okay.
I want them to write the letter. And this is our third try. It wasn't strong enough. So I marked anything up and I told them how I'm changing it. And I wanted to go out under KLH's letterhead approved by the authority chair. One last thing before I get off the subject. I felt it would be a little tough to ask for $100,000. So, spirit of cooperation, I suggested they pay us, give us a credit for $15,000 a month until they pay off $100,000. The reason I did that is we ought to pay them $25,000 a month. So I suggested they pay us, give us a credit for $15,000 each and every month until they pay the $100,400.
Okay, a couple of questions. I've heard discussion in the past that sewage systems can have infiltration into the system.
Yeah, that's why we checked first. We checked all that.
You were able to determine that there hasn't been.
Well, it is insignificant.
Insignificant.
Yes. And that's another thing we can, one thing at a time. We can discuss that later because the reason we want to get this meter in, get it calibrated, is we can calibrate and determine the inflow is with reasonable accuracy. Right. Right now, everybody's guessing.
Yes.
As you know, we're paying $1.10 or something for inflow.
Yep. We have a $1.20 contingency on the $4.50 per thousand, assuming infiltration of significant levels.
Yeah.
If we find that I&I inflow and infiltration is not significant, then we have another way to potentially reduce our costs.
That's the next shoot. That's why we want to get everything corrected there. We want to get the meters as accurate as we can get them. Pay another $1,500, whatever it takes to get the technician back, determine it, get it as accurate as it can be, recognizing that they're only going to guarantee between 5 and 10% accuracy. But still.
Okay, what about water that never goes down the sewer?
Yes.
Well, but that's, if we're gonna charge them based on water usage, and some of the water never goes.
We're charging them on all the clients that are connected to the sewer system. Now, take Masonic, for example. They have deduct meters on their cooling tower.
Okay.
That does not go down the sewer.
Okay.
So Masonic is only charged for water that goes down the sewer.
Yeah.
And those of you that have these fabulous swimming pools and things to work with, you should have deduct meters, and you don't pay for that. So it's only the water that goes to the sewer, what you're charged.
The water that you buy, though, in fact, is reduced very little by what you drink, what you put on your plants.
Yeah.
I know, it's so little. And it really probably doesn't even offset the potential 3 to 4% I&I in flow and infiltration. So are you going to recommend to the authority and to Sewickley that we stay with the water bills
Yes,
as opposed to the
Yes.
meter? The meter is going to be a checkpoint.
that's right.
What does Sewickley do with their other clients? We're not their only client going into that.
And,
I can't answer that.
and to clarify for people watching, when people heard about this issue, I think part of the interpretation was that it was their meters that were charging them specifically more, and therefore the money that is owed should come back to them. The money that was paid in excess to Sewickley came out of the authority's pocket.
That's why we've been running in the red.
So it is not the individual home meter that was inaccurate. It was the meters downstream, which the authority has had to absorb the cost of.
Yeah. What we billed the people, the clients, is what I'm telling you. It was
Right.
the 107,000 gallons a day. And what we're billing, or what Sewickley was paying us was 100, or we were paying strictly, we paid Sewickley, it was 172. So we weren't billing the client
Correct.
for all the water.
They weren't paying for this. That's what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say.
you're right. It's not clear, it is clear. Okay? I'm
Okay.
prepared to write that letter, so, take it easy on your plate, some clarity, right, tomorrow.
I understand.
Okay? But we're only asking for a credit, of what has been paid.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for good work. That's a
Yeah,
significant
I want to
accomplishment.
say how fortunate it is that we had Tony and John,
Yeah, here.
because this meter would still be overcharging us. And it's a big number.
Here,
Yeah,
here.
it's bigger than I.
So you've earned your pay.
Every nickel of it. I want to also compliment our superintendent.
Yes,
He's tremendous.
yes,
Been on this from day one, and he told me, when you go down and listen to that meter when a pump comes on, it sounds like a train going through there, the water's flowing so fast.
But now with the new board members, you got a complete package. Right? You got a good organization. All right.
Getting there. And you got the audit, the audit's in 2013.
Right.
Next, we have to go after the I&I, because I think we're way overpaying for that. Okay, well, that's.
Right.
That's the next item.
I mean, the rate's good.
The what?
Infiltration and.
I tell you that the clean out in my yard, I'm one little yard, right? And the cap on the clean out it's not even cracked, it's clear off. It's been off for years. So I wonder how many of those are catching stormwater. I mean, I know that the lawnmower just goes right over it. So,
Adam will replace those.
well, we should take him up on that, because it's,
No, he has replaced them before, and
you know, that's
Our
a
landscaper
big hole right there,
whacked
catching water.
Well, that's right. You should, 'cause I was worried that non-spots and everything, but it's not showing that, because we look, Bill gives, because they're right after a storm. He sees no significant difference.
Okay, anything else?
I think John's still.
Yeah, I have a couple other. Tony and I met with the representatives of Westview, along with the Harlan Westview Authority, to begin discussions on the new agreements with Westview. It wasn't very much in depth, but at least we got started.
He gave us their charges.
Yeah. At the last meeting, the authority did approve the new rate schedule, reducing the commercial and institutional customers from paying $10.50 to $9.50 per 1,000 gallons for sewage service.
Has that been communicated to the customer?
I don't know. I don't know that it wasn't.
Yeah, we
I don't
technically
think
have
it
to
would be
approve
at this.
it. We technically have to approve it.
Change the rate?
Well, again, this goes back to how we've done this, and again, for decades. It comes from the authority as a recommendation to the board in the
Okay.
form of a resolution.
Okay.
And then the commissioners then, through an ordinance, adopt the new rate schedule. And the reason, again, being that there are enforcement mechanisms that you have when you're collecting under an ordinance that you don't have with the resolution.
Okay.
Which, such as what?
Well, under a resolution, you would have to sue every customer on every delinquency and take them to a magistrate. They could appeal that to common police court and arguably take you up to the Supreme Court before you could ever collect.
Okay.
With a ordinance, you can impose a municipal lien immediately on a delinquent account, and you can lien the property without having to go to the magistrate and pursue a full blown-out legal process.
Have we ever had to do that?
With the rate or with just on an individual customer?
Yeah.
We have liened, yes.
Okay.
And the liening process does save lots of time, it saves lots of money, and then we hire Georgia Tax Service, I think, to collect our delinquent accounts, and they do the liening, they do the collection, all of which we would not be able to do if we simply relied on a resolution.
On a resolution. Okay.
So that's the thinking. The rate resolution was the recommendation, the resolution form recommendation was made at the last meeting of the authority board, as John reported, and I will prepare an ordinance for Gwen to advertise that you can introduce at the next meeting.
But so that it's clear, this affects only commercial rates. This does not affect residential rates.
And it affects the institutional rate.
Institutional.
Not
Institutional, I'm sorry, not commercial. Institutional rates, which is Masonic Village.
Did I misspoke? Does it?
No, I think I
Does
misspoke.
it not affect commercial rates?
It does not.
Okay.
Okay.
The other things the authority did at the last meeting, given a positive response on e-billings from customers, they authorized establishing the e-billing software. I don't recall the number. Do you remember, Tony? How many? Is there 100?
Get it overwhelming, about
70 or so.
How many?
about 70 or 80 people.
70 or 80?
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
That's okay. We consider the Masonic, it's only one customer.
And the other actions the authority took, they did retain Alan Miller as special counsel to represent the authority in the ongoing investigation by DEP in regard to the Osborne matters. And also they acted to take all legal action to preserve the authority's rights against KLH.
Against.
And
KLH.
for KLH, yes. Sorry. Finally, they did approve for purchasing piping material for that South McCoy Drive, up to $19,200, which we can do without public bids. And he did get 3 estimates from suppliers, and it's below that amount.
Is that from the bond funds?
No.
No,
That's authority.
Good.
Water
Good.
water system.
I remind you, every time you want to rip up the road,
Yeah.
a lot of times we have to put more water on it. So
The
we have to lift those rates.
Mr. Lasani and I also hope to have a rate consultant consider the tapping fees that we have received from Swickley, the proposed tapping fees. I don't know if they're proposed anymore because that was advertised, as I noticed, in the Swickley Herald this past week, to adopt the $4,000 tap fee.
For what?
For Swickley, for any connection up to a system that flows to Swickley.
For those
For new customers.
For those not present at the meeting that Tony, John, and others had with Swickley Borough Council and Flannery, we reminded them that the vast majority of new tap-ins would be from Aleppo Township, and to please consider that prior to them increasing their tap fee from $1,000 to $4,000.
We in fact asked further, so we have an opportunity to have our consultant look at it.
I wanted to say in general prior to this, in relation to some of Matt's comments and Gwen's comments, the Borough Council members that were at the meeting referred to us, one, as their best customer, and made several other positive comments relative to some of our concerns.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Yeah, interject, I'm sorry, I just learned today that Bill Davis called me, said after this big rain, landslide moved another 12 inches.
Oh, stand up and talk about it. That's not your normal yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. My voice is horrible.
That's all right.
I lost my beautiful baritone. Soprano and everything. Anyway, the landslide after the rain here over the weekend has moved. He said over a foot or as much as 15 inches further down the gully. He can't get any further down with his instruments. So I don't know we don't know what it's doing way down at the toe. But it continues to concern us. And I look to you, Mr. Solicitor. If we don't hear the next authority meeting, we're going to put those alarms in, because we cannot sit around without any alarm that will tell us if we have a sudden break. We've already authorized it to be designed. It's already designed. All we have to do is install it. We've been keeping our powder dry because BQT said they want to help us pay for it. And we can only wait so long. I think we waited long enough.
How much would it cost us to put it in without regard to EQT's contribution?
It'll be about $15,000. And
I thought it was about closer to 20.
yeah, but Bill said he could do a lot of the electrical. Oh, you're right. The price would be 20, but Bill said he could do some of the electrical. If you get down to 15, we asked for 20. I mean, we were talking about shutting the whole darn thing down, so I think we should at least alarm it if it's gonna break. We want immediate notice.
Can anybody give us a prediction of when it's gonna go, if it's gonna go, how bad is it?
No. Can't give a prediction unless you're clairvoyant.
No, but somebody should be able to do an analysis of this, do some test drilling or something.
You don't,
Well, there's
You don't-
been an analysis,
you don't wanna go in there and test drill, then you will make.
No, these would be very small.
but the geotechnical engineer that the authority hired has done a pretty extensive analysis. He's come up with as good a prognostication as he can. Nobody can tell you if, when, or how bad, but we do know that if it happens, the first thing that is likely to happen is it's likely to compromise our water line. And if our water line ruptures, that has consequences that affect not just the hillside, but also other things embedded in the hillside, such as the EQT pipeline, which is of major concern to us. So we benefit from an early warning system, but also EQT and others benefit from an early warning system. Unfortunately, my discussions with EQT's attorney have been largely positive, but as he's explained to me several times, unfortunately, it's a huge bureaucracy, and he has not gotten a formal response to our suggestion that they might want to contribute.
But the correct me if I'm wrong, Tony, that the warning that we're talking about getting is a warning that this water line has broken.
Exactly.
Correct? It's gonna alarm us that there is a larger than expected flow of water.
There's a leak.
Right.
The pressure drop is significant.
So presumably, by the time the water line is broken, won't the gas line have also broken?
No, because the gas line is below the water line.
No, it's 10 feet over.
Well, parallel.
So
Is it that close, Tim?
No, I'm sorry.
It's more like 50
50
feet away, yeah.
I was thinking about it.
but they're convinced that unless our line breaks, and I'm not saying they're right, unless our line, they're putting it this way, if our line breaks, that will further saturate the soil and would exacerbate the effects of the slide such that it might implicate their gas line. And that, they're saying, would be our responsibility.
So they're already setting us up for liability for their broken gas line.
Well, yeah, they are. They are.
I see. That's convenient of them.
It's kind of like the domino thing. We're again, without going into executive session, just the broad parameters are, we believe the guy at the top triggered the earth movement by loading it with debris and fill. The next one down is us. So that if it slides as a result of the guy at the top overloading the top of the hill, our line is compromised, it ruptures, and what happens when that happens? The next thing is the gas line.
Well, what happens if, just to play devil's advocate, what happens if there's a slide and it doesn't affect our water line, but it affects the gas line, and that triggers an explosion, and that exacerbates the slide, and now our water line goes. It could go the other way too, right?
Absolutely.
Anything could happen.
And that's why I think EQT, and I think that's why EQT's lawyer is saying he would recommend that they participate with us in this system, but he's still waiting to hear back from the powers that be.
Are they considering moving the gas line?
Not unless it happens.
We are still considering moving the water line?
Yeah, in fact, I went out on a limb and we got some estimates on all that.
Good. And you're also seeking possible funding sources for that?
There's one other aspect of this. The soils expert, Ackenheil, has recommended earlier on in his latest report that we do something about grading the road so the water that's coming down isn't running over the road but continues on down the road where there's a gutter.
Right.
And right now it's eroded to the point where the gutter is ineffective.
Right.
And I realize it's not our road, and it's in Glenfield, thank you.
And that's actually, I understand,
But
correct me if I'm wrong,
It seems like that's a
I
relatively
don't like
inexpensive thing to take care
Well, I
of.
just don't know how much we want to take on.
I know that, but
Frankly.
how can we get that done?
The guy, what's his name, Rieger or something?
Corridor.
He's the culprit that caused it.
Right.
He doesn't have, we doubt he has all the money. It's his responsibility to take care of that road. As I understand it, that road was vacated and he was to take care of it. Right. So he should take care of it. We shouldn't take care of it. I mean, I know it'll help. And our technical guy said there's a couple of trees that should be cut down.
Yeah, right.
And that should be taken care of. I just don't know how much we should get involved in all this. And these are minor things that I think Mr. Krieger should be taken care of.
And along those lines, we will be going back to court on August 15th? I'm sorry, 11th maybe. Second week in August, we'll be back in court with Mr. Kurger and his attorney, talking about what steps we think they should take to excavate the road, to alleviate some of these.
Drainage.
It seems like those are doable things.
They are doable.
What date is that?
And, you know, are we just as irresponsible if we don't take any steps to try to get it done?
I made the judgment that there's no way I want to correct that slide. There's just no way to do it.
I don't think you're going to correct the slide, you're just going to try to prevent the flow that's now exacerbating the slide.
That's August 11th.
I don't mean to argue with you in public.
No, John, I agree, it's a minor thing, I was figuring contractor has the equipment, this guy, he can do that.
Yeah,
And he was supposed to do the road, so I don't want to take on any of his responsibilities.
Can we make any legal efforts in the hearing that you've had in front of the judge to get those things done?
Yeah, we can, again, I'll speak generally, we are going to do that, but,
Wait, let's have one conversation. Wait, Len. Harlem, let's have one conversation at a time.
It's within the pipe itself then.
It's measuring the pressure of the pipe.
Yeah. So it wouldn't indicate if there was some movement in the pipe at all. As a sort of a pre-warning.
No, that's more sophisticated than you think anybody. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, we're being recorded, it'll get garbled.
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, my comments can hold anyway, but, what I was gonna say is, that's part of our approach at this point, at the hearing in August, will be to have our expert testify about what types of things can be done and who should do them. And that's that's more than enough detail, I think, than we probably should be discussing in a public meeting. As far as strategies and how we're gonna go about that, I think that would be better addressed in an executive session.
So there you go.
You're on it. You're on it.
I'm done.
Good. Oh, it's a good report.
As a matter of novelty, I'd like to say hi to Ruth Dara, who says, she just hung up.
You know all this, you know everything. Okay, COG,
No report.
Ambulance Authority, no report. Public Works, you finally get a chance.
We installed that catch basin on top of for the paving projects in the topsoil areas throughout the township. And right now, we're working on cutting back trees on all the township roads, focusing on what this way. And cutting grass throughout the township. And we had a down tree on Road Avenue on Sunday morning. Had to come out and move it off the road. Installed new stops on Maryland Road apparently, and we wiped the old one out. And some old park on truck 58 and what comes after again.
Okay, any questions? Thank you, Tom.
Any problems that we need to address?
No.
Good.
No, good shape. Real busy.
I'm sure.
Good. Report accepted. Solicitor,
My report has already been more or less conveyed in the context of the questions that were asked in the meeting, so I really have nothing further to report.
okay. Accept that. 537 plan, we need a motion to approve pay requisition number 25 in the amount of $979.40.
What is that, Gwen?
It's an invoice from KLH for inspection services they had to come out for 2 separate inspections. The Conservation District had them come out. Okay.
So moved.
Motion by George.
Excuse me, what was the one with the Conservation District? It was 2 hours he spent. What did they do?
The Conservation District came out and had to inspect all the sites that they had given them permits for during construction to make sure, all the areas where they had to put up silt fence and make sure that everything was restored properly. So, yeah, they went all around the whole project.
I understood the other one.
I'll second the motion. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Unfinished business? None?
No, I have one.
Okay.
Odds are the picnic will be deferred until next year. There's just too many picnics occurring everywhere. For those viewing or listening and for those in the room, I think it would be very nice if we had a unique theme. So just think about a unique theme that applies to Aleppo Community Days. The committee still believes it's a good idea. We just think this fall is a little crowded and we're a little behind the 8 ball. Then the other thing that we've discussed, it's certainly unfinished business, and I'm only going to discuss in general terms. I would like to encourage the township's negotiating team to aggressively reopen negotiations with Masonic Village. And to Masonic Village, I would like to say that prior to my election, it was stated several times you want to be a good neighbor. And I would hope that you would open your ears to new negotiations. I'd like to say that also within the context that as commissioners, we understand this is a zero-sum game. And so all the people in Aleppo Township are paying significantly more than they did before, and we have to be cognizant of that for the township as a whole.
Well, Harlan, why don't you reach out to them and see if we can get another meeting with them?
I already have.
Okay.
I've already been in touch with Brian Simmons. Brian thought, and I agree, that the proper time to sit down might be after any action is taken on the rate proposal, just because the rates would be part of their lawsuit and part of the negotiation. They might want to wait to see what the impact of a new rate would be on the pending litigation.
Well, interestingly, when I suggested the pilot adjustment, we decided to defer that until as part of negotiations. So I might counter his comments by saying that is part of the negotiations, the rate change. In other words, I want to see Matt's aware of it, Tony's aware of it. I don't know that you've seen it. Gwen and I are aware of it. I think a comprehensive package, including the entire offer, this is our offer, needs to be submitted in writing and then discussed, not piecemeal.
Well, they're willing to sit down with us on, I think, anytime we're prepared to come back and sit down. So I can arrange further negotiations anytime.
And then, in addition, because what Matt said I believe is true, I think that we, the commissioners, and especially the new commissioners, should update the community on progress that has been made over the last 6 months. And again, I'll address it very generally, but we have met with bond counsel and the bond underwriters to consider the possibility of saving money with a lower interest rate. We have done that. We are looking at the infiltration and inflow. We are in discussions with Sewickley. All of these things potentially would benefit everyone in the township. Then there are specific things which obviously can't be discussed, which may be a separate part of negotiations with Masonic. But
Are you suggesting reopening the discussion of the pilot?
I'm suggesting a comprehensive offer to resolve the lawsuit by negotiation. What that means is up to the negotiating team.
Well, when did you speak to Brian last?
Right before the authority meeting. He and Eric have attended the last 2 authority meetings. So they're aware of the rate process and where it stands. I have no problem with scheduling a meeting anytime, really. I don't think there's any impediment to doing that now.
Tony is the authority representative of myself and Matt and Gwen. We have prepared a draft for the negotiating team. I mean, do with it as you choose. But there is a draft of a comprehensive offer. And again, I think people know from past conflicts in the township, I think it's foolish for part of the township to be suing the township. You're paying for both sides. We've done that at Sewickley Heights Manor. We've avoided that. But right now, all we're doing is spending money on these wonderful attorneys. And as a community, I would prefer to see this resolved by negotiation ASAP.
Well, of course you'd like, of course you'd like to see it resolved, but
I'm putting that out in the airwaves.
all right. Well, Harlan, why don't we have another meeting with them? If even if it's let's have another meeting with them.
I'll arrange it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else under unfinished business? New business?
Yeah, if your agenda says a county course, I just forgot to take it off from last month, so ignore that.
Old business.
Oh, okay.
Picnic I already addressed.
Number 10, action items, what's that? Okay. We talked about the picnic. Citizen participation. Everybody knows the rules? Anybody have anything to say? Nope.
Already said it, I guess.
We've let you on early. I'm ready for a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Shucks. I second it.
Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion carried. We're out of here.